We're back here on the John Fourcade Show. And again, one of our John Fourcade specials this week is the Ford year-end event. The 2016 F-250 Super Duty Lariat, $10,750 off total savings or $12,000 off total savings. Again, a 2016 F-250 Super Duty right here. $10,750 off total savings or $12,000 off total savings. You can't find a better deal on a Ford vehicle than right here at Veterans Ford. We're back here on the John Fourcade Show. Mike DeTalia along with John Fourcade. John, no surprise, Detroit, we talked about this last week. They match up well against the Saints. I didn't feel good about this game from the start, losing 28-13. Matt Stafford, I'll say this, in all the games played this year, I think Matt Stafford was the best quarterback in that series of games that I've seen the Saints play. 341 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Drew Brees, his worst game of the year, 3 interceptions, 326 yards passing. They only rushed the ball 12 times. Come on, you're not going to win with that, but it was the time of possession. Right. We're talking about this on other shows. Almost 37 minutes of time that the Lions had the football. Your defense was on the field way too long, and that's not a winning combination. When you lose the giveaway takeaway ratio 0-3, you ain't winning many games in this league.
Well, let's look at this football game. You can sit there, people can talk about all they want about how the offense is number one in this category, number one in that category. Mike, I've said this many times. Stats took my book are for losers in a sense that they got a lot of stats that are first, but they're not winning games. They're losing football games. You look at what Detroit brought into this game. They were an average force defense in the middle of the pack, played very well. Their offense has done very well for them. Their defense has stepped up a little bit. I thought our Saints defense over the last 5 weeks, Mike, has played some really good football. But when you got a team scoring 6 points in the first half with a high-powered, number 1 ranked offense, this and that, it's BS because Drew was less than 100 yards in the first half. Yeah, he had a bad game. We're all entitled to bad games. It's going to happen. But he can't have one because it affects his team. 12 rushing attempts. And that's what I understand about the way they call in plays to New Orleans Saints. You're running 25 one week, 12 another week. You're rushing for 146 yards, 70 yards. You can't win with this offense. You can't win with this way they're doing things right now. This is a bad football team. Yes, I've said it. This is a bad football team all the way around. They should be winning some games. They're not. And how are you going to tell me Detroit's a better team than you at home? It shouldn't be that way. And the Saints were favored by 6. Explain that one to me.
Well, that was an easy take of 6 points on that. One of the things that was obvious is the Lions beat them in the trenches.
Yes.
It was not so much the skilled players, everything else. They totally dominated them up front, offensive, defensive line. They put a lot of pressure on Drew. Maybe not the sacks part, but that he almost could feel that pressure coming up on him. And again, the turnovers played a huge part in this game. And again, you see a place kicker hitting that first field goal. Now, listen, he got some power because that kick was partially blocked again. We're going through the same scenario of events, John. You're not winning the special teams game.
Right.
You're not winning up front. You're losing the turnover battle. You're not running the football well. And I think once Sean figured out the Lions were beating him up front, I think he figured, hey, listen, I'm just going to throw it.
Right.
But we can't run the ball against this football team, despite the fact you were rushing for over 4 yards average on this. I don't get the philosophy. I agree with you. You can't run the football 26 times one game and 12 the next. That's too inconsistent in this league.
You have to at least be a little more consistent in making the effort to run the football. I'm not saying you have to run it 26 to 30-some times because the Saints kind of run the ball through their short passing game. And let's talk about that scenario. When a guy whined and complained like a little baby all last week about, I don't get the football. First play of the game, you hand the ball off to your wide receiver. And then you try forcing the ball in to Cooks all through this football game. I don't care who you are. You don't play to satisfy your players. You play to win football games. There's a lot of other guys to be satisfied. He spreads the football around. I knew something in this football game was they were trying to force the ball downfield. Drew was looking for him. He was double covered sometimes, Mike trying to throw him the football. There's something wrong with his offensive philosophy. I don't like the fact that beginning of the season, Carmichael's calling the plays the last 4 or 5 games. Now it's been Sean Payton. Who's your offense coordinator and who's supposed to be calling the plays? Let's stick with what got us there and won Super Bowl those games and those years before. You don't see that now with this team.
One of the things defensively, they bent and forced a lot of field goals, but the backbreaker was
the 66-yarder.
Was the long play to Golden Tate. Von Bell, a mental bust there. And, man, I give Matt Stafford credit. He was actually hit on that play, and he still got the ball out in the flat. No, I'm just telling you, this guy can flat out wing it. And you saw some passes. He was coming sideways with it and everything else. It goes to show you, I think, what we've talked about before, the diva receivers in the NFL. I think Matt Stafford's playing better today without Calvin Johnson constantly in his ear about, I'm open, I'm open, I'm open. He's spreading the ball around. He uses the backs. Very similar. You look at Detroit's offensive philosophy, it's very similar to the Saints. Theo Reddick is basically a receiver coming out of the backfield. They don't really use him a lot running the football, but he spreads it around, uses the short pass like a running game, but he was red hot Sunday. And the Saints emotionally looked like Dracula visited them the night before. They had no energy, nothing.
Yeah, it was a flat football team and flat football game. As you look at it, and you see it 28-13. You said with 28-13, the Saints were in it 19-13. Even though they got to 19-13, I didn't feel like they were going to win this game. Yeah, I didn't feel like they were going to do anything because Detroit was going to go down the field. Even if Detroit got a field goal out of it, it still puts them well up on a point scenario. But I looked at this game like, how can you tell me Detroit's better than the New Orleans Saints when they're playing at home? And you go player for player. The Saints got some good ball players. Detroit's got some good ball players. But I thought the Saints at home had the number one element, which was Sean Payton or you could say Drew Brees. I didn't see that happening with these guys. I just thought they're flat, dead, and stick a fork in them. I don't see how they can come back now after this game and say, oh, we're going to win 4 in a row. It ain't going to happen.
Man, that's not happening. Listen, this has been a roller coaster football team all year. We've talked about it from week 1 we've done this show. Win 1, lose 1. Win 2, lose 2. The other thing, too, is some of the apathy from the fans. I saw as soon as Golden Tate scored, I looked down from the press box, everybody leaving the dome. A whole bunch from our area. Now, listen, we attached to the ceiling.
I'm about to say, your eyesight must be pretty good if you can see all them people leaving the dome because you're sitting up there with God.
But we looked straight down, and you could see everybody hitting the they were out of there. And years ago, that would have never happened.
No.
28-13, Drew will get us back into this football game. I think, a lot of people, it's over. I think they've kind of thrown the towel on this season for a lot of fans.
Yeah, I think when you look at some of the way that the Saints played this season, when they're beyond that 7 points, that 8, 9, 10 points, maybe 8 points still in, but when they're 9, 10, 12 points out of it, people saying,
man, I don't want to fight the traffic.
We can't, get out of there early. I can listen to the rest of the game on the radio. And I'm telling you what's going to start happening, Mike. The last few ball games they play at home or what they have left over, people aren't going to go to the game. And if they start like this next season, I think middle of the season, if they start bad next season, I know we talk about next, but fans are getting tired of it. You can sit at home and be miserable, then you can go to the dome and be miserable. Somehow we got to find ways to get the right people in here, and this team isn't that bad. They got some good ball players, but they're not putting it together. I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to plug the holes, what's going on here with this team.
I think one of the things is losing your home field advantage.
That's it.
The dome field advantage, which was great for this football team for so many years, it's not there anymore. We'll be back with more of the John Fourcade Show, sponsored each week by Veterans Ford.